Greetings, brothers and sisters. I want to start off by sort of doing a review of the Chris Rock Netflix special. And this is more talking about, where I am as a so called truther in my relationship to media or whatever, the world, right? Because I noticed that there are different levels and different ways of going about things. So my wife and I listened to Chris Rock's most recent Netflix special, the one with Will Smith, and he goes in hard in wokeness. At the beginning, he talks about wokeness. At the end, he talks about Will Smith. And it was a really kind of an epic comedy special. He says some things that we would agree with. He has points of view that are consistent with whatever, things I say here and truth or narratives. And then he says some things that truthers would be offended by, but I'm not offended by them because I don't care. I no longer care about people's beliefs and other people's beliefs. And when I watch content now, I watch content for, entertainment and or stuff I'll cover here. I mean, I do both things. Things that are, that I'll either pull memes from or just talk about the show or the movie or whatever it is. Talk about how it relates to everything that's going on in the world. And so in terms of comedians, all I expect them to be is funny. I don't expect them to agree with me. I don't expect with them to be truthers or any of these things. Like I'm not, it's not a prerequisite. Their job is to be funny. That's why I am so hard on most comedians because they're not funny. Saturday Night Live is not funny. Late night comedians are not funny because they become shills for the establishment. And, it's subjective that some people might find it funny, but I don't know how anybody would find Jimmy Kimmel funny. And Jimmy Kimmel's funnier than Stephen Colbert. And Stephen Colbert is funnier than Jimmy Fallon, right? In terms of, but none of them are funny, at least to me, and they shouldn't be really funny to anybody because it's not quality comedy. Jay Leno was once a good comedian. I saw Jay Leno live. And, he came out and met everybody. Like after the show, he was standing in the back of the whatever it was, the club or whatever, and he was shaking people's hands and meeting, like he worked it, right? And he sucked on the Tonight Show. He became more and more of a shill, but he once was a quality comedian, right? David Letterman was funny, and his stuff, if you rewatched it, if I rewatched it, it would still probably be funny, right? And again, we have different times in our life where things are funny, but then there's things like when I watched Saturday Night Live was in high school, it became a new thing. People watched it because it was cutting edge for that time. Like when Saturday Night Live first came out, it was a new thing and it pushed boundaries. But when I look back at, say, Steve Martin, who was a guest host a number of times, he was a huge comedian at the time. He was never really that funny. He was never really funny. He was funny in some movies. He was good in some movies. But as a comedian, as a host of Saturday Night Live, his sketches were stupid, right? Wild and crazy guys. But it was funny because people all thought it was collectively funny, right? When people look at other people to see if they're laughing, and then they laugh. But what I'm talking about is a person's ability to create the condition of laughter, which is something that I enjoy, right? I enjoy laughing. I enjoy that feeling. Of laughing, right? When somebody can make you laugh, when something's funny. And so Chris Rock had a number of jokes that were really funny. My wife and I laughed at them and, conceptual things. And they were funny. And some of the things were, borderline truthers. There were some other things that were clearly not truther. He said things about the big event in January 2021 that, people will be bummed about, some things like that. But, I haven't found those things funny. Like, he's become a good comedian. When Chris Rock first came out, he sucked. I thought he was not funny at all. He was, an Eddie Murphy protege. Eddie Murphy was just naturally funny, and Chris Rock was like trying too hard. And, I just didn't think he was a quality comedian, but he has turned into one. And there's two savage takedowns of the woke community, which begins the this special, and then he sets in on Will Smith at the end, and it's pretty brutal. Now I believed, and I don't know, I don't care about now. Still kind of believe that the whole thing was staged. It looked staged. I covered this. Everything about it seemed like it was fake or whatever. But either way, he destroys Will Smith at the end. Right? It's bad. The ways that it's still making me laugh. He goes after Draymond Green for some reason. I don't know, because Draymond Green punched a much smaller teammate. I mean, Chris Rock gets into the difference in physical size between him and Will Smith, and I mean, he really just, he spends some time on the thing, right? And it's pretty brutal. The stuff that we wouldn't agree with, most of us wouldn't agree with his, position or his, and their jokes or whatever it is. Like they're not, and then at this point, no, it just doesn't really matter. We're all in free fall in a society that's collapsing around us. But, so that's why I laugh at the apocalypse, right? But he talked about being pro-choice, and he said that a woman should get an abortion up to the baby's 4 years old. And he talks about being killing a baby, like being honest that it's killing a kid, right? And it's pretty brutal. It's probably tough for maybe many of you to stomach or whatever it is. Like, I just don't care. Louis C.K. had a similar bit, and I don't know if Chris Rock lifted some of that, but Louis C.K. said the same thing. It's murder, right? And that to me is a positive step. Whether they agree, they're saying that it's murder, but it should be allowed. Both Louis C.K. and Chris Rock said the same thing. But for me, in the age of just constant BS, for people just to admit what it is, say that this is murdering babies, right? That's what, abortion is. I mean, there's, by all measurable standards, life begins at conception. So, that's, just when people, and I've said this before, just admit what you're doing, because people are going to make their own choices. People have choices and they make them, right? Laws, don't affect people. Laws affect people's choices, but people can still make the choice to break the law, right? So whether something's legal or not, it doesn't matter. It's whether you choose to do it. And if you're going to choose to do something, you have to be honest about what it is. There's that great Ben Affleck quote I have here. A little meme. I'll put it in here, but it's also a Netflix movie where him and a bunch of former soldiers are going in to steal drug money. And he's like, let's not BS ourselves, right? Let's not pretend this is something other than it is. We're committing one murder and one robbery.
Make no mistake about it. What we are about to do is criminal. We do not have the flag on our shoulders, and no amount of bullshit that we tell ourselves is going to change that. If we do our job right, we will be committing one murder and one armed robbery.
Human beings always have the proclivity to lie to themselves. That's why I often cover these comments, and it's just it's something everybody's got to work on. We want to believe what we want. We want to do what we want to do, and we want to believe what we want to believe, and we'll rearrange a reality to justify or to solidify our point of view or our decision making, to do things that we kind of deep down don't want to know it's wrong or whatever it is, but we do it anyway because that's how we're wired in a sense. So there's that. And I've said this with abortion. If you're going to do it or if you're going to think about it, just be clear on one thing. When does life begin? And it's not up for debate, right? It begins when it begins, and that's whatever it is, right? Whether it's scientific or it's spiritual or it's based in the soul or it's based in the, physical coming together of two physical elements, the sperm of the man and the egg of the woman, or whatever you want to call them, and they come together and form a third living creature, right? And so, it's something for people to come to terms with. And Chris Rock, I said, get into the woke culture and the cancel culture stuff. And, more and more people are just over that whole thing, right? More and more people are just, tired of the, like Chris Rock says, words don't matter as much as getting punched or something like that, right? Which I've talked about here. The things about words, I just covered Alex Jones and they're trying to go after his $2,000 cat. I got couple of short videos about that and a longer video where that's included. And there's just this, and Alex Jones is, whatever he is, shill, whatever, but controlled opposition. But, in all that stuff, the way that they are presenting everything, like your words are somehow worse than the evil actions that they're doing. And that's because the, biggest fear, and I'm going to get into this with John Moran and Kyrie Irving more tomorrow on my other channel. There's something more about that I want to talk about. That it's okay to act like a thug, but just don't question the establishment. That's the, what I've been talking about, comparing those two situations. And it's very obvious, like the difference between the way Kyrie was treated for not getting vaccinated over John Moran doing things that are, criminal under criminal investigation. And there's a substantial, double standard. Like one is much worse. And the issue is that Kyrie questioned the authority, which you're not supposed to do. And that is something you can see they're pushing back against more and more. You can, act out as long as you stay within the bandwidth of accepting the powers that be and their, their agenda and their whatever it is. So anyways, I wanted to start off with this thing about Chris Rock. Let's get into the other things here. Big event in January coverage, the QAnon Shaman, who is just, there's something funny about that guy, right? The whole QAnon Shaman thing is hilarious. Russian troops forced to fight with shovels as ammo shortage undermines Bakhmut advance. They just have to fight with shovels. I mean, they're reduced to fighting with shovels in this war. Like, how can they win with just shovels? I don't understand the ass kicking that these guys are taking. I mean, if you're reduced to shovels, wouldn't you just give up, right? Dr. Jill Biden calls Nikki Haley's proposal for political mental competence test ridiculous. Of course, when you're married to a senile old man that you're handling and managing, that poops in his depends and can't complete like full sentences, and his mind is deteriorated. I mean, it was bad in 2019, and it's gotten worse ever since. And he's, going to be the oldest president, and he sucked beforehand. Yeah, you don't want that guy, a guy who's caught plagiarizing and lying and things like this. First Lady Jill Biden criticized Republican presidential candidate Nikki Haley's proposal for required politicians over 75 to take a mental competency test as ridiculous. In a CNN interview airing Monday night, we'll see that. I'll show you that in 2 days probably. Brushing off concerns over President Joe Biden's age, the First Lady was asked whether he would consider taking such a test, and she responded, "We would never even discuss something like that." You mean, let's say his, he started to, eat paint and like frickin' run around in his underwear or whatever, like he started to exhibit dementia, you wouldn't have him take a test, right? You would just keep having him be president because the guy is not fit to lead. He's not fit. I mean, what job would you give that guy? I mean, not just people who hate Biden, not just right-wing people, but liberal people. If you met a person like Joe Biden and you were running a business, would you let him, like, say, drive your kid's school bus? Well, what would you let him do, right? There's very little that you let the guy do. If you're filled with hate, then Arnold Schwarzenegger's new video is just for you. So Arnold just drops some wisdom at the end of this thing.
It's easy. Much easier. You don't have to change anything. Everything in your life that you aren't happy about can be someone else's fault. You can keep fueling yourself on the sugar high of hate.
You can keep fueling yourself on the sugar high of hate. You realize he's talking to people in hate groups, right? He's talking to Nazis or white supremacists here. Like, he's under the impression that he can reason with people. They're going to watch this video, that they're going to hear something on the internet, and they're going to change their ways, right? When he himself is a very hateful person, I'll get into that in a bit. And when I turn this into a short, it'll be in another short where he's criticizing people who didn't want to wear masks and anti-vaxxers, and he's very hateful, right? Hate is inside of you. I've said this so much. Hate is something that's inside your internal system. The object of your hate is something outside of you, a group, a person, whatever it is. But the hate is yours, and you can't fix somebody else's hate. You got to get rid of your own hate.
But the end of that road isn't pretty. I've seen it with my own eyes. You will end up broken, searching for ways to numb your pain and your misery. See, I don't want you to go through all of that.
You're such a caring person, Arnold. He's just such a clown, right? He doesn't want these people in this hate groups to go through that misery and the self-destruction from choking on their own hate. He's just so caring. He's just a caring person.
It's unnecessary.
It's unnecessary. This guy, he cares about you.
So, the bottom line is, I don't care how many hateful things you may have written online. I don't care how often you've marched with carrying that hateful flag, or what hateful things you may have said in anger. There's still hope for you. There's still time for you. Choose strength. Choose life.
He's a pro-lifer.
Conquer your mind. You can do it.
You can do it, hateful people. Except, Arnold, you're a hateful person yourself. Why do you hate anti-vaxxers so much, Arnold?
There's still people that don't believe in masks. There's still people out there that say, well, we don't have to do social distancing and all this kind of stuff. There is misinformation out there. And my point of it was basically, look, there's no one that knows more about a bicep than I do, because I studied this issue for 50 years. And the same is also with the virus. There are people out
Nobody knows more than him.
that are experts that study this year after year after year, and that they experienced, like Dr. Fauci, that has been in this, probably for his entire life. I mean, why would you not believe someone like that? So, and there's so many other scientists out there and experts on this subject. So I
Why wouldn't you believe those guys?
believe them and I follow them.
Like, they never lie to you.
Very carefully. And of course, sometimes things are happening that are unexpected. So then you have to make the adjustments and all that. But I think people should know there is a virus here. It kills people. And the only way we prevent it is to get vaccinated, to wear masks, to do social distancing, washing your hands all the time, and not just to think about, well, my freedom is being kind of disturbed here. No, screw your freedom.
So why do you hate anti-vaxxers and anti-maskers so much, Arnold? You hater, yeah? Right? You're choking on your own hate, Arnold. You know, I'm watching this in the editing process. I decided to redo this part because of my observation of he's like reached that age where he, feels like, or people usually would, or in a normal situation, have wisdom to impart on their grandkids or youthful people, right? So Arnold's out there thinking he has wisdom to impart, but he's a dope. he's an inarticulate dope, and he's so often on the wrong side of things. He's so remedial in his thought process and all these things. He's just, he's the ultimate tagline, right? I'll be back, right? That bumper sticker kind of stuff. Like, he speaks in bumper stickers. I talked about that with the Qbies and all these other groups of people here, but the mainstreamers are the worst. Dilbert creator Scott Adams says he won't apologize for offending people with comments on race. No, because they did it intentionally. Yeah, the guy wanted attention. He did it intentionally because he wanted attention. This is what people do. They say something shocking so they can, so they can get people to look at him, right? He wants people to look at him and, whatever it is. Gigi Hadid admits she's a Nepo baby. I'm not the prettiest person in the world, said a person who makes their profession by being a model. This is the same thing that Jamie Curtis said. Jamie Lee Curtis, this is, again, the whole, everyone in Hollywood is taking everyone in Hollywood is now, all these people who are second generation are claiming to be Nepo babies, and, they're so, humble, right? Tucker Carlson cherry picks January 6th footage to deny there was an insurrection. So what happened was Mike McCarthy, or whatever his name is, Andrew McCarthy, gave Tucker Carlson this footage, and there's an interesting scene here. And again, I'm not endorsing the right-wing people and the right-wing narrative here. Trump got rolled, right? You guys got psyoped. All you Qbies got psyoped. Trump, all you Trumpers got psyoped. Trump himself got sucked into this, or he was a part of it. Who knows what his intentions or what his culpability is here. But, you all are accountable for doing this stupid thing. But clearly, you got worked by the intelligence community because this guy is an intelligence agency asset, right?
Most famous person arrested that day was a Navy veteran from Arizona called Jacob Chansley, often referred to as the QAnon Shaman.
Okay, so this guy, here, let's go back to this. This guy, right, is a clear asset. He's either an operative himself, he's ex-military, he's got these crazy eyes, so it could be that. So he could be just, a volunteer being worked by intelligence community handlers. I've said this before. If this is a dangerous cult, the QAnon cult, then why don't they have Q? Why haven't they identified Q? With all the intelligence community apparatus, we know the spying ability of the intelligence community, and they can find anybody anywhere, especially somebody posting online. And they could find this guy. They're not even looking for Q, right? There's never been any hunt for Q because Q is them. Q is the intelligence community. And all you dopes who got roped into this got worked by the intelligence community. And this guy either looks like a volunteer who was handled or he was somebody who was in on it. Either way.
Shaman.
The so-called QAnon Shaman. QAnon Shaman.
Someone named Q Shaman.
Jacob Chansley became the face of January 6th.
Kaboom. See, look at this guy's picture. I've got the two pictures they featured here. You see a guy dressed up with some sort of raccoon hat with horns, right? And then he puts makeup on and he wears whatever, he's carrying a spear, all the stuff he's doing. When you see somebody like that out in public, if it isn't Halloween, and even if it is a little bit, but less so, you think the person's crazy, right? When a person dresses up like that, okay, maybe you're at a football game or, it's a Vikings football game or something, whatever it might be. But if you go to the mall or you go to a business, like let's say some guy comes to work dressed like that, you would think he's crazy. Let's say it's the CEO of a company. Let's say Jojo Magoo showed up in that outfit. People would say that guy's crazy, right? And would laugh at him. Like, this is a person that you're going to mock. It's not a person you want representing your demographic. You don't want people like this being the face of your movement, right? This is a clown. This is a guy dressed up like a clown to act like a clown so people will not take you seriously. And, they did the same thing with Trump and even more so with these guys. They make fun of their clownery. They make fun of what a clown Trump is or what a clown the Q Shaman is, Qbie Shaman is, right? But they also say this is some criminal mastermind, dangerous insurrectionist. You think this guy would be able to orchestrate a coup, right? You think this guy's going to take over the government? It's just ridiculous. Like, they can't have it both ways. You can't have this guy be both a clown and a criminal mastermind.
A dangerous conspiracy theorist dressed in outlandish costume who led the violent insurrection to overthrow American democracy. For these crimes,
so he's got crazy eyes, right? That's a quite crazy M&F-er there.
Chansley was sentenced to nearly 4 years in prison, far more time than many violent criminals now receive. What did Jacob Chansley do to receive this punishment? To this day, there is dispute over how Chansley got into the Capitol building. But according to our review of the internal surveillance video, it is very clear what happened once he got inside.
So he's being escorted by cops here.
Virtually every moment of his time inside the Capitol was caught on tape. The tapes show that Capitol Police never stopped Jacob Chansley. They helped him. They acted as his tour guides. Here's video of
guy's trying to open the door for him.
Chansley in the Senate chamber.
He's like, all right, we can go here. Let's go over here.
Capitol Police officers take him to multiple entrances. And
so, he's being handled, right? This whole thing was, you got worked. And it's, you Republicans who are crying foul. It's Trump who got worked. It's Trump who you should be mad at. It's Trump who, got this whole thing going. And everybody who got roped into it, right? It's been a huge win for the left It's been a huge win for the Democrats, and it's because you got worked, you got played. All the Qbies, all the Trumpers, all the people got sucked into it. You know, it's a psyop, and you walked right into it, right?
And even try to open locked doors for him. We counted at least 9 officers who were within touching distance of unarmed
This one's like on her phone playing video games.
Jacob Chansley. Not one of them even tried to slow him down. Chansley understood that Capitol Police were his allies. Video shows him giving thanks for them in a prayer on the floor of the Senate. Watch.
Thank you, Heavenly Father, for giving the inspiration needed to these police officers to allow us in this building.
Contrast the reality.
Kaboom. So, you know, but this was all, I mean, it's obviously an operation. The Dems and the liberals will say he's cherry-picking the data, and of course, the data was cherry-picked in the first place. And that's why this is, you know, nothing's believable, right? They, you know, the mass media that we have hasn't opened up. It's just flooded it with more lies, right? The disinformation networks of social media have just flooded everything with more lies, and to where nobody believes anything, right? That meme I had from that, you know, that TV show we watched. It's a sucky TV show, but interesting conversation here. I'll play that meme.
Us to provoke on the ground. If we've attracted the right kind of people, it'll kick off of its own accord.
So it's all made up, the whole thing.
Well, I prefer managed.
But what's the point of reporting something that's so obviously fake news?
Look, you need to forget all your previous experience as a journalist, okay? Whether it's faked isn't the point. I mean, everything that's reported is fake, one way or another. We know that people won't believe it. It probably contradicts what we said yesterday. It doesn't matter. The point is to get people used to the idea that everything's a lie, that there is no truth. And once they accept that, well, biggest liar wins.
So I want to restate the ending here. So the title of this article from Huffington Post, Tucker Carlson cherry picks January 6th footage. They also had the piece where Arnold Schwarzenegger is talking to people in hate groups and telling them to change their ways, right? And it's just so hypocritical, because this footage that they show you of him being marched around the Capitol definitely makes the part about the insurrection far less believable. And the footage that they showed you, and Tucker Carlson said there's something like 30,000 hours. I mean, crazy amounts of footage. There's cameras everywhere. And his staff was given this, and they've gone through it. And, of course, he's going to cherry pick it. Sure, he'll cherry pick it because they all do that, right? Everyone on the internet wants to prove their point. Everyone on the internet wants to do something to validate their belief system. People aren't looking to change their point of view. People are locked into their beliefs, like pit bull, like grabbing onto the throat of. I mean, so you have this this situation where everybody is unchangeable, and when they get caught, they, in this case, they're caught doing what they did, which was running images and media that push the insurrection narrative. And the Republicans will say, here, we're right all along. No, you're not right all along. You guys suck just as bad as worse. You got played. You got rolled. You got sucked into this thing. You got played by Trump, and Trump got played by was part of it, whatever it was. And you all got worked. You all got psychological operated. You got a psyop run on you. All the Qbies, like I said, you got this Qbie Shaman. And when you see this guy's in your movement, it's time to move on. They're marching that guy through the Capitol like he's, some sort of a, like celebrity or something, right? And the reason they did that is they were planning something. And you walked into the trap. Trump walked into the trap. And it just shows you how, it doesn't prove you're right. It proves I was right. People like me who were right when we said this in the first place, that they are trying to create a profile. And I don't care that I was right, because I've done and said stupid things, believed stupid things like all the rest of you. Like we all get sucked into the initial truther narratives. But the problem is that the whole system is just seething with corruption. It is, saturated with corruption and dishonesty and demonic energy and going away from God and doing the wrong thing. And we're all a part of it. We're all a part of that problem. Nobody wants to hear that. You want to hear this group's responsible, or these guys got to change over there. And it's always been about people need to change, which they do, because the system is a reflection of them. But the system is great. The people suck. The people are ruining the system. And the system is ruining the people. And so when you realize that, then eventually you realize, I'm 100% dependent on a system that's bad for me and everybody else. And that's when you really start becoming a real, truther. You start confronting how messed up you are, and maybe you can work on being a more natural person and all these things, right? But unfortunately, very few people reach that stage because it means taking personal responsibility, which nobody wants to do. Okay, so I got one more Madonna comment that is worth repeating, worth saying here. And then I want to talk about reincarnation. Somebody asked me about it, and I talk about it every once in a while. But there was this one epic comment that I also want to talk about the Pandice thing again. And so this person, to the short video entitled, "Why Has Nobody Told Madonna Madam Expiration Date That She Died in 2020? And the comment says this: "I feel sorry for all the haters out there who can't keep their fingers from writing all those nasty comments." So there's a lot there. First, there's pity. This person's obviously superior to everybody who says something negative about Madonna. I mean, it's a nice person who just feels superior and pities all you lowlifes who, you have finger problems. Your fingers are writing comments. You don't want to write them, but your fingers just do it anyway. She didn't ask for your advice nor your opinion about her looks. She will always be a diva. Love you, Madonna. Do you love Madonna? You actually do love Madonna, right? You love her because you're not capable of love, if that's what you're saying love is. You can't love a celebrity. You can't, that's a infatuation. It's kind of twisted and weird, right? Because the celebrity that you see is a brand. It's not a real person. It's a construction. You can't love a character in a movie. You can like a character. You can admire a character. You can have some positive feelings, but love is something deeper. Love happens on a level that's beyond something that you could just have for a celebrity or a character or any of these things, a brand. You're saying love and you don't really know what love is because you're misusing the word. Another two words that have been misused was I put this video out about the Island Boys, and they're saying, do your research. And one of the Island Boys blackened his eyes, his eyelids and things. And people kept on saying pandies, and pandies would be something that happened to your skin, not when you paint something. It's just, I got so many of those comments I mentioned on my other channel, so I'm not going to cover it for long here. But it just, there's this element exists in every group and every demographic where people hear something or see something and they just have to blurt a bumper sticker out. They have to blurt a slogan out, a teaching, right? There's so many people in the truth community that watch a video and don't really understand the video or enough of it so they can explain it themselves. And they'll just refer you to it. I talked about this with flat earthers, but it's pretty much everybody. That they don't understand the video themselves. They don't understand the concept, but they think that somebody else does and they believe that other person. And that's not good. At least admit that you don't know, that somebody sounds like they know something and you're following that person, sure. But just admit that to yourself. Don't admit don't pretend you know something when you don't. Don't announce it like it's reality because you saw a video and you think it might be something to it. And you come in hard and strong like it's a definite when it's clearly not. So I want to talk briefly about reincarnation. And reincarnation, so you take away your prejudice. So In the Christian tradition, Jesus talked about past lives. It's in the Gnostic Gospels. It's, there was stories that were omitted and taken away by the people who constructed the Bible and the dogma of Christianity. And the reason for this is that one of the draws to Christianity is that when you die, you go to heaven or hell. It's a one-off. And so that puts pressure on you to accept the religion because you don't want to go to hell and you want to go to heaven. And if there's idea of past lives, that gets rid of that, that tool of control that brings people into Christianity out of fear of going to hell and temptation of going to heaven, right? It's a promise of something good and a fear of something bad. But if, they were truly following what Jesus believed, because Jesus believed in reincarnation, which most people in that area of the world at that time believed it. And people have believed this throughout religious traditions and shamanistic, aboriginal type of teachings. A lot of these various spiritual movements believed in reincarnation. So if you understand that, traditionally, that's what everybody believed in. Anybody who understood that there was a soul would believe in reincarnation. So what are some of the things that will, I can't prove it to you. Like, it can't be proven. I have had some past life memories, but they could be just imagination. Like, I can't say for sure they're definite memories. And there's some people I think I was in a past life, one sort of famous person in India that doesn't mean anything to most of you people, who are watching this, but someone from the Mahabharata, and then some other subsequent lives. I believe I've had at least a life or maybe more lives as a Native American. I have attraction to that culture. Master Charji, the third master of the system of Saj Marg, had said that he was a Native American. He recognized a tree or something in the Atlanta area. So, there is that, right? But past life memory is, at best, very flimsy. It's not real. It's not scientific proof. You can't prove it that way. But, for some people who've experienced it, you're pretty sure it's true, right? If you've had any of these past life experiences. And some of those experiences, when you're familiar with people, there are people that come into your lives that you immediately have a bond with. Like my wife now, somebody who, I've known now for 5 years, but even from the very beginning, we, had a very strong connection. And you meet people like that in your life who you just feel it. You feel you're connected to them. And, that is evidence of a past life, or at least a soul connection somewhere on us, and that's also a past life. If you're, in an etheric body and you're not in physical form and you're connected to a soul, and that soul, that's a past life, right? Even though you're not in the physical body. Because when you die, you're going somewhere. If you believe in a soul, your soul's going somewhere, so you have a future life somewhere else, and you must have come from somewhere. Your soul wasn't created by your body. Your soul created your body. And so, again, I can't prove any of this stuff, but just think about it logically. So if you understand these basic principles, that things and, places and people will seem familiar, and there'll be, past life memory and things like this. What's something else that's proof of a past life? Well, video games, right? When you think about video games and an avatar where you have multiple lives playing a video game, it's representative of this idea of past lives. Another aspect of this is when you're in life and you have problems. Let's say you're an alcoholic or something. You have some kind of personality issues, psychological issues, behavioral issues, and the problems just keep on coming back around again and again and again. You'll marry the same person 4 times. It'll be a different person, but it's the same person, right? Like this kind of thing. You marry someone and they turn out to be a certain way, and then you marry someone else and they turn out exactly the same way, and the problems are the same, and the situation doesn't change. You do it again 3 times, 4 times. At what point do you realize you have to change something inside of you for the marriage to work out, right? So you can attract a better spouse or whatever, girlfriends, boyfriends, business partners, and you have these cycles, these cyclical behaviors, until you break the cycle, they just keep on coming around. And so why would those cycles stop when you die? Let's say you left something unresolved. Why wouldn't you come back and live it again? I mean, everything's cycles. Everything's about graduation. Everything's about reaching a new level and transformation. I mean, you can experience this in life where you transform something, you change something from a pattern of behavior into something else. So that's another way that you can look at, past lives being an example of that. Until you graduate something, until you master something, you can't move to the next level. And that's throughout your material experience. You have to graduate. You have to, ascend out of a lower level to a higher level. Until you do that, you just have the same problems and the same circumstances over and over again. And so, if you think about that as opposed to what they teach you in the Christian religion, where you just accept Jesus Christ and somehow you'll get into heaven. Well, that doesn't, that sounds like a good deal, but it doesn't sound like anything that resembles nature or the nature of life, right? We always have to work and get better and do things in a higher level. If it was just making one choice or letting somebody else do it, someone else can't die for your sins. This is just, your sins are your sins, right? And so, that's just not possible. It doesn't exist that someone else could die for your sins. It's a nice thought. It's a good selling point, but it doesn't exist, right? It can't happen. So these are, reasons why the reincarnation theory, the incarnation theory is, about graduation, the transmigration of the soul, where, animals serve people and they're around people and they're pulled up to a people level consciousness in a future life, right? They're an animal in one life and they're a person in the next, right? This happens where the soul rises up to a higher level. Everything's about moving farther along and ascending and going deeper within and self-mastery and all this type of stuff. That's how, everything is in the world, right? For people who are successful, you have to, and again, material success is one thing, but spiritual success is something else. You have to master things. You have to ascend. You have to transform yourself. You have to rise up to a higher level. You have to graduate. It also explains the differences in people and their problems and their circumstances. And, as family members, twins who have very different personalities and very different lives, and they have very, very different ways of expressing their, whatever things from the past life, right? I mean, there's all this evidence out there. You want to look at it, you'll find it, right? If you're looking for it with an open mind, you'll find it. You'll understand it. Otherwise, I'm just wasting my breath. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely pointing for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.